All right, guys. So the U.S. House of Representatives has officially voted to release the Epstein files after Donald Trump folded and had to do a complete 180 and pretend like he was always in favor of this bill passing. I mean, keep in mind, he was saying that this is a full-blown Democratic hoax. He was saying that only stupid Republicans would vote for this bill. He was bringing some Republicans like Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room with himself and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and JD Vance to try to put pressure on them to vote against this. But it looked like there were still going to be upwards of over 100 Republican defectors. So again, he basically pretended like, no, I was actually in favor of this the entire time because he didn't want to look weak and he didn't want to look like he took the massive L that he actually did. So here from CNN, their headline is House votes to release the Epstein files, sending the bill to the Senate. So the House has taken a major step. The chamber has overwhelmingly passed a bipartisan bill to compel the Justice Department to release all of its case files tied to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The House voted 427-1, with GOP Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana the only member voting against it. And they say the next steps are that the Senate Majority Leader John Thune said that the House bill passed could be approved by the Senate as soon as today. And the president said that he will sign the bill if Congress passes it, which again is a stark reversal in his position. Now, keep in mind, this does not mean that this is actually how this is going to play out. I'm sure, as we're going to see in this video here, with some of the things we've seen, Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, request from the Senate in terms of massive changes to be made to this bill. I'm sure they're going to try to throw gum in the works. I'm doubtful that Trump would sign this bill. And even if he did, he's already been, attempting, as pointed out by Thomas Massie, to open up new investigations only into Democrats, to potentially use that as some sort of a justification to prevent the release of these files. So this is definitely not like the final battle. This is not the final victory or anything like that. But again, this is a massive, massive blow to Donald Trump, who was aggressively lobbying his party to not vote in favor of this, to continue to block the Epstein files from being released. And he lost that battle. Now, I want to show you guys a couple of different videos here from Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna, who were some of the people who were leading the charge on this bill. Obviously, MTG and Thomas Massie breaking from Donald Trump and breaking from the vast majority of the Republican Party in order to try to make this happen. So here's the first video of Marjorie Taylor Greene basically insinuating that Donald Trump is a traitor after, a couple days ago, Donald Trump called her a traitor to the country. He's been running around calling her Marjorie Taylor Greene. So we're going to go ahead and watch this video and then look at top Trump ally Laura Loomer's absolutely deranged response and analysis of what MTG is saying in this clip here.
Against the most powerful people in the world, even the President of the United States, in order to make this vote happen today. I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free. I won my first election without his endorsement, beating 8 men in a primary. And I've never owed him anything, but I fought for him for the policies and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women and refusing to take my name off the discharge petition. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me.
So pretty clear there, right? She's saying, I'm not a traitor. A traitor is somebody who serves foreign countries and themselves, right? A clear shot at Donald Trump personally. Obviously, he's deeply, deeply implicated in these Epstein files. I mean, his name was mentioned over 1,000 times just across the couple email batches that we got over the last couple of weeks here. So he's deeply implicated in this, and that's obviously one of the major reasons why he wants the Epstein files to continue to be blocked. But the other major reason is the other thing that she's insinuating here, that, Jeffrey Epstein seemed pretty clear, given the evidence that we have at our disposal, was an Israeli asset. And so that's another reason why both Donald Trump and the rest of sort of the establishment elite Epstein class within our government doesn't want these files to be released. They don't want further information coming out about his ties to Israel. And so she's kind of not so subtly hinting here that maybe part of the reason Donald Trump is blocking this is because Israel does not want him to have the files released, and he serves Israel. Now, in response to this, we have Laura Loomer, a top, Trump ally here, and her analysis is At her anti-Trump Epstein press conference this morning, Marjorie, okay, first off, it's not an anti-Trump press conference. It's pro-releasing the Epstein files. I mean, it's literally a press conference with some of these survivors of Jeffrey Epstein standing behind her. That's what this press conference is about. It's not an anti-Trump press conference. It's only anti-Trump because Trump is standing with the, Epstein class over the Epstein survivors. That's why it's anti-Trump. But she says Marjorie Taylor Greene once again inferred that President Trump is controlled by a foreign nation. We all know that she's talking about Israel. MTG basically called Trump a traitor. Well, okay, he just called her a traitor. Like, why is it now it's radical for her to say that about him, but not for him to say that about her? She points out the quote there of what she said. She says, why doesn't she just say what she really wants to say? She wants to say that Trump serves Israel because she has Israel derangement syndrome. Okay, first off, Trump does serve Israel, right? I mean, not only has the United States given tens of billions of dollars to Israel to blow up innocent Palestinian children. We've given them coverage on the international stage, attacking institutions like the United Nations, attacking institutions like the International Criminal Court for daring to try to hold Israeli officials and soldiers accountable for their various war crimes. Not only have we done that and torched our reputation on the international stage for Israel, we also bombed Iran on behalf of Israel. That had no material benefit whatsoever to the United States of America. So we went into a 12-day war with Iran that almost escalated drastically beyond that. And then also on top of that, are we just going to pretend like Donald Trump wasn't recently, a couple months ago, in Israel speaking in front of the Knesset and directly pointed out Miriam Adelson, one of his top donors who gave him over $100 million, and said she loves Israel more than America? He's openly saying somebody I took $100 million from in order to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. Yeah, she actually prefers Israel or is more loyal to Israel than to the United States of America. Like, are we actually going to pretend like Donald Trump is not in the pocket of Israel? Like, this is not even remotely controversial. Not to mention, he has a bunch of other business ties and personal ties financially to a ton of other governments as well. I mean, this is a guy who took like a $400 million jet from the Qataris, right? This is a guy who has golf courses all over the world. He's building hotels all over the world to the benefit of himself financially, and then cutting deals with those very same countries, right? I mean, right now we have Mohammed bin Salman, who's in the United States, shaking hands with Donald Trump. Trump is pledging to give him, potentially millions of dollars in this security arrangement. And this is the same country that gave $2 billion to his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Like, are we going to really pretend like Trump is America first, whatever you want to define that as, that he's not in the pocket of foreign governments, with Israel being first and foremost on that list? I mean, this is the same guy, mind you, who is having Americans targeted for their views, for their protests against Israel, right? This is a guy who has hijacked American universities because he thinks that their curriculum is not sufficiently pro-Israel. This is a guy who's having people deported, right, over writing op-eds that are critical of Israel. Like, let's be real about this situation. It is entirely fair to suggest that Donald Trump is in the pocket of not just Israel, but many other foreign countries as well, whoever serves his personal bottom line. But that was the analysis there from Laura Loomer. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. Now, we move on here because we also have Thomas Massie describing how this all broke down and calling out the Trump administration, the FBI, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, the DOJ, for holding this up for so long.
Well, he got tired of me winning, so he joined our side. I have no animosity toward him. I regret that it got personal for some folks, but it never has for me. It's always been about the survivors.
What do you make of this reversal? I mean, after months of fighting you.
Well, the Speaker, the Attorney General, the FBI Director, the President, and the Vice President could have saved us all this time and embarrassment, frankly, for our own party if they'd just done the right thing 4 months ago.
Do you believe him, Congressman? I mean, for weeks he's been pushing against this. Now he says he supports it. Do you buy it?
He's only supporting it because the President told him to support it.
No,
that's what Mike Johnson does.
No, I'm talking about, do you buy President Trump saying that he wants the House to pass this resolution?
Well, I'm concerned that now he's opening a flurry of investigations, and I believe they may be trying to use those investigations as a predicate for not releasing the files. That's my concern.
You think they'll try to block it?
Well, they will. I'm afraid they're going to try to use a provision of the law that allows you not to release these materials if they're subject of an ongoing investigation and would harm, and the release of which would harm the ongoing investigation.
So what do you think this is all about for President Trump? First he was blocking this, pushing Republicans to block this for so long. Now he's reversing course, and he has the power to release the full files anyway.
Well, it's pretty simple. For 4 months, he thought the best thing for him was to keep the files secret, and somebody convinced him that the best thing for him was to release the files. And if they're serious about it, they should release them right now. It's that simple.
Why do you think he is working so hard not to get them released for so many months? What do you think the real reason is?
These files implicate billionaires and friends of him, of his, and political donors that he's trying to protect. And Epstein also had close ties to our own intelligence agencies and Israel's intelligence agencies. That's why there's so much effort in trying to stop this.
Yeah, I mean, he's entirely correct, right? This implicates very powerful people, politicians, billionaires, the security state apparatus, whether that's our own intelligence agencies, whether that's Israel's intelligence agencies. That's why they're trying to cover this up, right? And he makes a secondary point there that, like, you have utterly humiliated your party, and specifically with Donald Trump, like, if there genuinely is not any actual compromising information for Donald Trump in these files, then why the fuck are you acting so guilty, right? You could at any point release all of the files that you are legally able to release, and you've chosen to do it, to go about this in the most suspicious way imaginable. So it's like, of course, people are going to come to the conclusion that, hey, maybe you are far more implicated in this than you're letting on. Now, Thomas Massie also made this point on how they're going to try to gum up the works moving forward here. So Speaker Mike Johnson is planning to protect perverts who went to the rape island from embarrassment. He says, do not let the Senate add an amendment to avoid disclosing those rich and powerful men who have evaded justice for so many years. Is Johnson calling all victims non-credible? And so what he's pointing out here is what was put up in this press conference thing that Mike Johnson did, where he was basically attacking this bill that ended up getting voted for. It says dangers of the discharge petition, if not amended. And I mean, some of these are just absolutely absurd points. I mean, number one, victim privacy does not adequately protect victims. So is he talking about the Epstein survivors? Because this bill was drafted in coordination with the Epstein victims themselves, right? Innocent persons, he says, risks disclosure of non-credible allegations, creating new victims. I mean, listen, whatever's in these materials, like, we're going to be able to figure out if somebody did something genuinely fucked up, or if they maybe just had some sort of a general association with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, those are two very different things as to whether or not you were directly involved in the child sex trafficking operation, or you just knew him through business ties or something. Like, those are entirely separate things. Number three, child sexual abuse material, I mean, fails to adequately protect against the release of CSAM. I mean, keep in mind, number one, it does address this in the House bill that was drafted by Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie. This is directly addressed. And, like, secondary point, do you genuinely believe that anybody wants child sexual abuse materials to come out from these files? Nobody wants that. Of course, that should be protected. Of course, that should be redacted. Nobody's calling for that to be released. And then he says, future investigations and declassification requires the release of information that could reveal confidential methods and sources, which is an interesting one to point out there that we'll get to more here in a second. Now, we also had, on top of these attempts clearly from House Speaker Mike Johnson to gum up the works here and call on the Senate to revise this, we also have Donald Trump weighing in here on Air Force One when a reporter was pushing him on the release of the Epstein files. I'm not going to play the clip because it's a little bit difficult to hear with the plane sounds, but he responded by saying, "Quiet, quiet, piggy." That's what he said to a female reporter. He said, "Quiet, piggy," and pointed his finger at her. So, again, like, is this the behavior of a guy who is confident that he's not implicated in these files, yelling at reporters saying, "Quiet, piggy," for daring to ask questions about it? Now, again, we have more here from Mike Johnson expressing concerns on the Epstein files coming out. He says they could ruin the reputations of completely innocent people, such as those who may have just known Epstein but knew nothing of his crimes, or whose names he exploited and used to try to get close to his intended victims. Okay, again, there's a difference between those things, right? If the files show that somebody was directly implicated in actual criminal behavior, then that's what the files are going to show. If they show that somebody just had a connection to Jeffrey Epstein, people aren't just going to uniformly say, okay, arrest that man or ruin that person's career just because they had some tangential connection to Jeffrey Epstein. The details matter, right? But I guess his point here is like, if all of the information comes out, then you're going to have people who didn't do anything wrong, but people are going to make that association and ruin their lives. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think people just want accountability for actual criminals involved in this entire thing. Now, we also have Ro Khanna here responding to Mike Johnson's claim that this bill doesn't protect victims. He said, of course it protects the victims because we worked, again, with the survivors in drafting this bill. He says maybe he should have showed up and listened to the survivors themselves. And again, credit to Ro Khanna for helping to spearhead the push on this bill in the first place. So you can also see here in this one, Mike Johnson was going back and forth with a reporter on the actual text of what's in the bill that the House just passed. And he basically just gets caught lying about this. So the reporter said the survivors are comfortable with this. It's in the bill talking about the protections for victims and the removal of any CSAM material. And Mike Johnson said they're not comfortable with it. The reporter said it's up to the Attorney General as to what gets included and what's redacted. And he says, no, it's not. We're not making this up. I mean, he literally is making this up. Like, the major concerns that he's outlining with this House bill that he's asking the Senate to amend are already included in this House bill that was just passed. So just obviously lying about that. Now, we also have Mike Johnson claiming that the files can't be released unredacted, interestingly, because of intelligence-related material. Let's go ahead and watch this clip here.
All right. Number 5, national security concerns, okay? The discharge requires the Attorney General to release within 30 days, quote, classified information to the maximum extent possible. This ignores the principle that declassification should always rest, and always has rested, with the agency that originated the intelligence. Why? So that they can protect their critical sources and methods. It is incredibly dangerous to demand that officials or employees of the DOJ declassify materials that originated in other agencies.
So, in other words, we can't allow this bill to go through as is because this could potentially implicate the CIA or the NSA, right? U.S. intelligence agencies and what they might have known about Jeffrey Epstein. So we can't release it. We can't declassify things. We can't release things to the full extent that we're allowed to release them because that may potentially be damaging to the CIA or the NSA and their sources and methods in relation to this specific case. I mean, phenomenal sort of like tacit admission there. Now, final couple of things here. We had an interesting back and forth with Nancy Mace on CNN with Burnett, talking about the flip that happened over the last couple of days with Donald Trump. This is kind of an amazing clip here.
Willing to speak, but the President of the United States did say over the weekend that only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into the trap of voting for the release of the files. I mean,
and he's come around,
the
and that's a
the
good
facts
thing.
That he
but
did not
Biden
want these files
wouldn't do
to come
anything.
out.
But Trump has come around, and Biden never came around. Biden never gave these women a chance, and that's the story you all aren't telling. When I went through my
they had
trauma
an investigation
2 years ago,
into Ghislaine Maxwell, which resulted in her being put in prison, and then she was moved to a minimum security prison in a residential neighborhood after meeting with Todd
Maxwell
Blanche.
in front of the oversight committee. I want to take her on. I want all the facts. I want to have my time with her to get to the bottom of this.
Okay, so 2 things on this. 3 things on this, right? Number 1, it's not an unfair thing to say that these files should have come out under Biden. That's a fine point to make. But second thing, she says Trump has come around on this. No, the fuck he has not. He was backed into a corner. The only reason that he came out in favor of this is because there were reports behind the scenes that 100 Republicans were about to break from him, and he was going to look weak. He was going to look like he just lost his Republican coalition and that they were going against his wishes. That's why he turned around on this. He didn't have some like awakening, from day to day. I mean, it was back-to-back days where he went from saying only stupid Republicans who are falling for a Democrat hoax will vote for this bill to then saying, no, I was actually in favor of it all along, right? That's the switch up that we just saw happen. Again, purely out of self-interested reasons. And then third point on this, yeah, I mean, we have the Ghislaine Maxwell situation right now that's just as suspicious as any of the, Trump being named in the files that we've gotten, in the leaked emails that we've gotten over the last couple of weeks. Ghislaine Maxwell, right, who was sentenced for grooming and child sex trafficking and all of these things, sentenced to 20 years in prison, was moved into like a minimum security summer camp type of place in Texas, where she gets like puppy time and access to the internet to be able to send emails to people that she wants to, and, special provisions and help from the warden and things like that. There is absolutely no possible justification for that happening. In fact, many people are arguing that it's straight up illegal for them to move her there, because you're not supposed to have people who are convicted of sexual crimes be in that kind of a facility. But there is no reason for that to have happened, other than if Ghislaine Maxwell has potentially compromising information on the president, and he basically did that as a gift to her or as an offer to her in order for her to clear his name, or for her to not release the information that she has on Donald Trump. And there's also word behind the scenes that Donald Trump is considering a full-blown pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell. Again, nothing that anybody in a reasonable situation would consider, unless you feel threatened by the information that Ghislaine Maxwell had. Now, speaking of that, we also have here this wild clip from Chris Cuomo interviewing the brother of Jeffrey Epstein, Mark Epstein, who gets a little bit touchy and defensive when he's asked about the email, the most infamous one that's come out over the last couple of days, of Trump blowing Bubba, that many people initially suspected is Epstein talking about. There's a video out there of Donald Trump giving a blowjob to Bill Clinton, and then Epstein's brother came out and said, who was the one involved in this back and forth, he said, no, it's not talking about Bill Clinton, but then he refuses to say what it is about. So this is incredible here.
This weekend, did you see the emails between Jeffrey Epstein and his brother Mark? Did you see? It's proof that Epstein was covering and had stuff on Trump as his sex life. This back and forth with Jeffrey, where he tells you that Bannon is with him, and you say, oh, great, ask him if Putin still has photos of Donnie T, I'm assuming President Trump, with blowing, which we all know what that means, Bubba.
Let me stop you here. I'm not discussing that email. This is a private email between Jeffrey and myself. It's two brothers talking. It's nobody's business what we wrote. The only thing I responded to is because people got crazy with the Bubba reference and they tried to pin it on Clinton. So I made a public statement that it was not any reference to Bill Clinton. I like Bill Clinton, and I'm sorry for him that he had to go through that. But the email had nothing to do with Clinton, and that's my last word on that email.
And I get it. You don't want to talk about it. It was a private back and forth with your brother. Fine. But it is being used as proof that your brother had compromised information about Donald Trump. Is that what you were referring to, and is that what you suspect?
No, Jeffrey, in 2016, I said this publicly before, Jeffrey told me that if he said what he knew about the candidates, they'd have to cancel the election. He didn't tell me what he knew, but Jeffrey definitely had dirt on Trump. And you can see in the emails, Trump could deny it all he wants, but it's pretty clear. I mean, everything Trump says is a lie.
But that's not what you were talking about.
It's provable that he was in Jeffrey's office. He said he wasn't in the house. It's provable he was there. He said everything he says is a lie.
But that's not what you were talking about in the text thread. You don't know of any information that he had.
I'm not discussing that email.
So, I mean, again, very interesting stuff there. Number one, he says, okay, it wasn't Bill Clinton that we were referring to, but then he refuses to say, like, he could have cleared the air completely there and said, no, this was like an inside joke, or, this wasn't actually referring to Trump giving a blowjob to somebody. He doesn't say that. He does not say that. So I guess that's still out there, just it maybe wasn't in reference to Bill Clinton specifically. And then the secondary thing that he says is, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein 100% had compromising information on Donald Trump, to the point where he was saying in some of these emails that, he had the power to get the candidates basically wiped out before the election in 2016. He's saying, I have enough information on Donald Trump that this would completely implode his run for president. So there you have it, guys. I mean, again, it's not a mystery as to why Donald Trump is nervous about this, why he worked so hard to prevent that House bill from being voted on. It's because, number one, his name is plastered throughout all of these files. To what extent, we don't know. If there's direct implications of criminal behavior there, again, we don't know. There's also the possibility that he could have tried to have any real compromising information scrubbed from the files in this months-long period where they've been holding them up. That's also a possibility. But the secondary reason why they want them blocked is, again, the point that has been hinted at by Thomas Massie and by Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, which is that, yeah, all of the evidence points to Jeffrey Epstein being an Israeli asset. right? Why does he have direct connections to 4 former Israeli prime ministers? Why was he running around with Ehud Barak in the 2010s and helping to cut security agreements on behalf of the state of Israel with countries like Mongolia and Cote d'Ivoire? Why was he opening up back channels for Israel to Russia during the Syrian civil war? Like, it seems pretty obvious he was an Israeli asset, and it also seems pretty obvious that he has a ton of compromising or had a ton of compromising information on all of these high-profile politicians and billionaires and wealthy elites in this country and around the world, including Donald Trump, and that's why he doesn't want this to get pushed further. So again, this is just the first step. It's going to go to the Senate. Then if it passes through the Senate without any changes, which it seems like they're going to try to make some changes to it, then it will go to Donald Trump and he'll have to make that final decision. And then we'll have to see what sort of games they try to play after that with opening up investigations to prevent the release of the files or whatever else. So again, this is not the final victory here. This is an initial victory. But if the pressure is kept up, then, again, this could be something that is seriously the rupture of Trump's MAGA coalition. This could be something that permanently divides and fractures his movement moving forward.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying